So, guys, quick short one, yet I'm quite hoping that you guys are going to be able to catch that concept as general as I make it. Is this aspect of the polarity between compassion and wisdom and the various degrees that you have within both. It's an interesting and really fun subject to kind of look into and play with when you're also understanding non duality and you basically want to you're able to kind of spot a bit more behaviors or behaviors around the world, including yourself, and balancing certain things out. It kind of helps you just laugh at how we can often push certain things to an extreme, even if it's compassion or wisdom, and what the extremes are, which are kind of funny in the behaviors that they kind of bring out. Yet again, throughout the years, cyclical repetitions or repetitions of certain habits, you're kind of able to spot where certain extremes are, and also you're able to balance it out for your own just sake and your own level up. And at the same time, once you kind of balance both of them out in a regular way, you again, it's easier methods to stay in the flow state, because going to one extreme leads to a reaction. So let's get into it. Much easier to just go with the flow and let that shit just download as it goes. So interestingly enough, there's been a movie that got me cued in on that aspect of things, as well as the feeling of separation I spoke about on Gun Road. And it was the documentary Lonnie Frisbee, Life and Death of a Hippie Preacher. And there was a part in the beginning where the guy was basically around that era, psychedelic drugs were being tested out, and various movements started, various communes started. But interestingly enough, there was a part where a minister, before he had met him, Lonnie, a minister was looking at this, and he it was funny because I caught myself reacting to that, but he kind of just saw hippies and people in the street, young people, as they had that conservative mindset, even though he was a minister. Not conservative, but kind of like this aspect of they should just do this, even though being a minister and teaching in church. And his wife just started crying because she thought that they were all going to hell and they couldn't be saved, or it would be a hard time to save them. And at that point, I just had to pause the DVD and go, oh, huh, oh. Because initially it was like, you're crying because your perception is due to them not following your principles from your perception and what you've learned, what was passed out onto you. You feel so much compassion with that frame that it causes you to cry. But again, it's all a frame. Meaning, if I learn that because of my religion, a specific set way will get you to that place called heaven, which is, you can already create heaven on earth. We can make a video about that really easy at another point. It's a different concept, and the whole aspect is a concept of the mind, how Jesus taught it, which ironically Lonnie knew how to pull it to do, but that's a different story. We'll make a video on that, but still. So that frame anchored caused that reaction. So much compassion there, and when it came to her husband, there was also this symptom of people need to follow this specific set of rules. He even implemented that on Lonnie later down his life, and it kind of fucked things up. And you can kind of see both extremes. Over compassion is literally you separating yourself from yourself and everyone else, in this aspect of the soul, by having this rule set from the mind that tells you, okay, well, oh man, I can't believe they're gonna be down because they don't know exactly what I know, or they don't know follow exactly what I follow. And it's like, that's over compassion, because you don't know what's going on in their life. It's just a simple, quick judgment from the lens, the projector, the hard drive, from its rule set, saying that, okay, well, everyone who doesn't merely follow that is not going to go to heaven, so you should feel bad for them. And of course, a lot of it was indoctrinated at that time. And it was fascinating to see, because it's like, yeah, okay, I can see how there's people in my life, early on when I was still going to church, and even around my family, who had that going in various other aspects. My mom had this sense of over, kind of like this aspect of over compassion for, okay, well, it's a bit tricky to explain that one, even though I can't fully, like, kind of figure it out, because it's not wisdom. It wasn't an extreme of wisdom, which we'll talk in a few moments, but it was kind of like this sense of, I really, really, really need you to learn this, or to do school in a certain way, to practice a certain way, to be a certain way, because society will look at you away, and I don't want you to feel bad. And you can see this aspect of, I don't want you to feel bad, so I'm forcing you to be a certain way. But who the fuck are you to say that, to think that I would feel bad? It's kind of like, it's a rough way to say, you're not in my head, so what's going on? You know? It's a rough way to say, but at first you kind of just want to shock the mind with a rough way, and then you balance it out by going, well, yeah, you're not in my head. But again, cyclically passed down. I'm pretty sure that her mother, her father, her environment blitzed her out like that very same way. Because you don't necessarily, once you kind of understand, okay, well, what's the extreme of compassion? What are the extremes? And you notice over compassion versus lack of compassion. You kind of, you're able to grasp that. Lack of compassion is complete detachment. You know, you just don't entirely, it's complete, not to that middle ground, because there is a middle ground, which is, I understand the situation that you are, I understand that you don't know what you don't know, which is an add-on of wisdom, and I am like, I know you have guidance, so I can generally attempt to direct you, but I will not force it, because I wouldn't want the same thing to be done onto me. Always that question, the mirror, you set that up, and you start seeing, going back to the preacher's wife, if someone from another religion would act the same way towards you, or think of you in such way, thinking you are doomed because you're not following my religion, and I feel super sad for you because I feel that your situation is hopeless. That's a lot of projection that's coming from the projector, the mind, based off its rule sets. And of course, both the person that project and the other person, to a certain degree, depending if they kind of get wrapped up into that emotional space or this kind of conversation, get affected in a negative way. Because when you feel separated from yourself, you kind of lack a lot of, you don't lack, but it's kind of like, feel yourself in the flow state, feel yourself feeling like that. There's two different things. And obviously you'd rather be in the flow state, having fun, being playful, loving what you do, free flowing. It's easy, it's effortless, you love to learn, it's simple, there's no failure. It's just, okay, how do I get to that, how do I get to that? You just keep rerouting, versus I need you to be a certain way, and then feeling like sad, because that's literal separation. Once you judge, once you feel despair, once you feel anxiety, separation. So that's extremes of compassion. Compassion is not bad. It's going and practicing, repeatedly practicing extremes on various subjects in your life. And it's a game. It's a literal game. But once you start noticing the extremes, especially in the way the mind plays it out on projecting it onto others, so, oh, because you don't know this, then, you know, all of that, then you're able to spot it and just balance back out. Now, quickly, when it comes to wisdom, the extreme of wisdom is a tad bit different, yet at the same time the same. Oh man, non-duality. the extreme of wisdom, for example, at the beginning when I started learning this stuff, okay, starting with motivational videos, then going into meditation, then going into philosophy, then going into religion, and just playing all around, even quantum physics. At the beginning, I didn't feel I could talk to anyone about it. And the prospect of just fucking off and learning was kind of like those early ideas. Yet, it doesn't really match. So, when it comes to the extreme of wisdom, it's kind of like not it's further than the initial steps of kind of like inner separation when it comes to thinking that no one's really going to get you. There's still, it kind of mixes in with the aspect of wanting to be gotten, and it brings it to an extreme because it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to be gotten, then I might as well just continue learning that and just separate from the rest. And you get into this aspect of a tad bit of arrogance, which you'll notice in certain teachers. Of course, not in an aspect of judgment. You can just pinpoint it. I've noticed it in many, well, I won't say many, but multiple mystics, in a way where there's either an aspect of retreating and not necessarily communicating, which is okay, but then there's also a negative side of considering whoever doesn't learn to that point or doesn't understand to that point, considering them idiots or considering them lower. There's a sense of pedestal that's kind of formed, and that's an extreme because when you get into that extreme of wisdom, you lack the compassion to understand you don't know what you don't know at the point that you don't know it. It's a universal thing, but you also understand the context behind people not necessarily understanding, and you also place yourself back in the aspect that, oh shit, I did take time to learn this. I have my own definitions based on where I've been, what I've learned, what influenced me, which region have I learned, which people I've spoken to, and I cannot expect other people to know it exactly as I do. Because at that point, what if someone else would do the same thing to me? Bam, you slam the mirror again when it comes to that wisdom. And it's a form of extreme that you kind of want to watch out for. When you're going to criticize people, when you're going to judge people, that's part of that extreme of wisdom in a way. In a way. Because it's kind of like going, okay, well, I know it all. I know the one way, and this is the one method to do it. And if you don't necessarily know, then you're an idiot. And it's like, well, no. There's multiple ways. There's so many ways to connect with ourselves and get into that aspect of continuous flow state and then spread that state onto every activities that we do or in anything that we do. That to be that way is still an aspect of separation with yourself and with others at the beginning, and then with yourself because you reflect that upon yourself. It still comes out from your mind. It's still you projecting that out. So it is still you feeling that aspect of separation when you make that judgment from that extreme of wisdom. So you're still losing in a way. Not losing, but you're still kind of like halting your flow state just because of that in a way. And yeah, it's kind of like I noticed this especially when listening to various kind of yogi talks and in and out, and it's not all, again, it's never a generalized thing. It's just something that's been noticed throughout the times, and not simply yogic. There's even motivational speakers that would get to that point of just criticizing other speakers because blah 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 blah, they're not doing the thing that I do, so blah 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 blah, not necessarily understanding that we're all in this together. We're all sharing knowledge from our different vantage points and points of view and context, which can connect with various people. Not all. You're trying to blast a beam of knowledge to everyone on the earth. If that were to happen, that'd be interesting. Yet, it's not going to be done vocally, especially in the aspect of our different definitions and context, is that interesting little Babel's Tower scenario where we're having a hard time communicating with each other on the wording, on the definition, and all that. But we all connect on the emotion aspect, and that can easily bring you back to this point of setting up the mirror and going, okay, well, how would I feel if somebody else did the same thing or went to either of those extremes? So play with that. Don't again, non-duality is your best friend because you understand this aspect that it works at one point, or this could kind of it the maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Works could work this way, could work that way. And also never forgetting that it could work in certain contexts and not in other contexts. Because as soon as you understand, you don't need to stick to that linear, solid mind one way thing that we were kind of indoctrinated in, because school, one answer, one good answer. Even if it's multiple choices, it's a very specific set. Again, it's involuntary and the cyclical nature of it all. But once you move out of that and take as an example your craft is your best friend, because you're able to go from your craft understanding how each and every pieces of things that you've collected over the years based on your preferences has helped you create something. It's the same thing for life itself, your thoughts and your waves, always reflecting back like a mirror. How would I feel about if it was reflected back to me? So enjoy, kick some asses, and play with this. You can spot this in various things, and you can even spot in yourself. Hell, well, when I saw that documentary, initially I was kind of reacting, and I had to pause just to go, okay, well, what's going on? And because of that, I learned, and it's so much fun, much more fun now, because I no longer look at documentaries or any kind of videos or any kind of media or even interactions with that kind of lens of just, okay, well, the reactions inside aren't really going to any extremes. It slowly, per time, diminishes to an aspect of, okay, well, maybe that works for me. Okay, well, I can understand how you can get to that. And I understand how context leads to that, especially around that time. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's not automatically falling back to resentment, which is one thing and this is a last note, one thing that you really have to be careful not to fall into either extremes or bounce back from them towards resentment. This is one thing that, as an example, if you dive into conspiracy theories, you get roped into this aspect of other people have done something to these people, and then boom, you feel triggered, you feel bad, you feel like, oh, fuck these people, because you feel an aspect of compassion for what has or what was told happened, yet you didn't live it in a moment. And this is the key. What are you living in the moment? Because if you're going to get affected by what is told to you from a different vintage point, you're still kind of lost your control in a sense. And hey, that's all refinement. Yet, don't kind of let yourself be played like that. Learn, understand, and grasp the wisdom from your reaction. With that documentary, I understood a lot more about how separation happens on all sides. And I'll want to make a video about that because it was beautiful. Because initially I kind of reacted strongly because of my past and various things with the religion. But eventually, once I caught that, and I'm like, oh wait, so this person reacted to that, and all sorts of links were made, understanding the aspect of inner separation and the action that it causes, the thoughts that it generated, leading to the feelings that it generates, and leading to the actions and results. And at that point, it's like, okay, so you can easily get caught in a separation loop, as well as with diving into extremes. It's a very interesting entanglement that your mind can easily get you wrapped in there if you don't pay attention to your reaction when you feel something, when you're about to respond, when you're like, this person, when you don't necessarily spot that, you can easily get caught in that loop, which you have entire control once you understand all this. So it's understanding you have entire control, but be patient with yourself, be your own best friend, your own best parent, and question yourself about that. Again, best parent way, not the cyclical behavior that happened. Because of course it all trickles down to us, and then it'll trickle down to the next generations. Yet understanding you're at that point where you can make the choice, you're conscious of it, and it's because of everything that happened causing ripples of understandings, theories, and everything. So Boom, no more resentment. Okay, what do you learn and what you got? What's your level up today? you know? And use any kind of visualization method. I love the Ready Player One VR suit type of deal because you can, depending on how many games you play or kind of movies like that you see, you can have your own little pop-ups of info, insights that your connection, that your soul kind of gives you at that point, because your mind is distracted by the visualization. It doesn't think it's real, yet remember, it's all coming from within, including the soul. So you can spot the reactions at that point and clean it up while tricking the mind. And the mind is not the enemy. Make sure you remember that. The mind is not the enemy. It just tries its best, and we haven't knew how to take control like right now, which is fucking cool. So play. Have some fun, guys, and stay chill. Play with this. Again, non-duality is your best friend, and patience. Actually, all of these plus yourself are your best friends. And everyone else, in a way, but we'll talk about that concept a bit later on. So many things to talk about, man.